Sohni Mahinwal's story is selected from Dr. Asif Riaz Qadir's book Classical Romantic Stories of Pakistan. This book was published by Rudad Publications, Islamabad, Pakistan in 2022. The book contains 12 romantic stories from Pakistan including Azad, Jammu and Kashmir. Let's listen and watch the story. Story of Sohni Mahinwal. Of the rivers flowing in the Punjab province of Pakistan, only the Chenab has the distinction of being associated with many popular love stories. In the folk literature, especially in folk songs and stories, River Chenab is remembered as Chanan. People believe that its water has such a magical effect that it does not allow a person to stay anywhere for good. The tragic drama of Heer and Ranjha was played in front of poet Damodar. Mirza and his Sahiba had fling of love on the bank of the river and fell prey to the evil eyes of the world. The love story of Sohni and Mahinwal was also written with blood on its rippling waters. It is a reminder of the time when countries around the world remembered the subcontinent as the Golden Sparrow. Merchants brought a variety of goods from distant lands and on their way back returned with a variety of goods. In the historical city of Bukhara, now in Uzbekistan, there lived an eminent merchant named Mirza Ali, whose business extended to distant lands. His agents and workers used to come to India with merchandise and on their return bought diamonds, jewels and other necessities and took them back to their homeland, doubly benefiting from the trade according to the custom of the time. With so much wealth and honor, he was deprived of the blessing of children. And this was a concern for which he, like Mughal Emperor Akbar, asked for 1,000 prayer and attended the doors of the fakirs, mendicants. One day, hearing from someone that a dervish had come to a nearby hill, whose popularity and reputation was much talked about, he went to the dervish and, after making a vow, said, "It is his heart's voice that he wants a son." The dervish spent days and nights in chanting and worship. One day he raised his head towards the sky in front of Mirza Ali and said that God Almighty would give you a beautiful son even in this age, but he would be wounded by the arrow of love, Cupid, when he is young. He would put his life in trouble and then lose his life in a state of misery and leave only his name behind. Exactly 9 months later, Allah Almighty blessed Mirza Ali with a male offspring named Izzat Beg. Since Izzat Beg was the only one and the wealth was abundant in the house, the kind-hearted businessman did not spare any effort in training his child. Besides to pampering, he was trained in the popular sciences and arts, as well as in javelin throwing, horsemanship, swordsmanship, and archery. Izzat Beg was very handsome, intelligent and innocent as well as an obedient son of his parents, but in his youth, like every other boy, his heart started dreaming of seeing the world and making something of himself. He repeatedly asked his father and mother to let him join a caravan to go abroad so that he could know the world, but every time his father and mother declined, saying that he was the only child of old age and they could not afford his absence, but one day they had to do so at the insistence of Izzat Beg. Emperor Shah Jahan's birthday was to be celebrated in Delhi, so Mirza Ali prepared a large trade caravan and sent Izzat Beg with them on the condition that he would return soon with the caravan. Head of the caravan was given the responsibility of his safety, and on his assurance, Ali Beg half-heartedly allowed his beloved son to go India. When the caravan left, at the request of Izzat Beg, who was eager to travel and see new cities, it was decided to go straight to Delhi first, as there was a possibility of an immediate sale of merchandise due to King's birthday celebrations. In this way, it will be easier for them to return to Bukhara by camping in Lahore, Gujarat, and other cities. This suggestion proved to be very reasonable, as the caravan, during its stay in Delhi, quickly sold its merchandise and toured Delhi, which was then the capital of India. This was a rare marvel for the caravan from Balkh Bukhara and especially for Izzat Beg. Here Izzat Beg had the opportunity to appear in the royal court and present valuable gifts in the service of Shah Jahan. According to royal custom, the king also presented him with a kala, a horse, and about 100,000 gold coins, which was a great honor for the caravan, and especially for the young Izzat Beg. On their return, the elders of the wealthy caravan thought that some goods should be bought from Delhi and some would be taken from Lahore and Gujarat on the way. After stopping at Lahore for 2 days, sightseeing and shopping, the next stop of the caravan was Gujarat, where the bloody waves of the Chenab river flowed and the story of Izzat Beg becoming Mahinwal begins. Izzat Beg's caravan camped outside Gujarat city. They began to rest to relieve the fatigue of the journey. At night, when everyone was sitting and talking to each other, a fellow traveler said to Izzat Beg, "Respected sir, Gujarat city is famous all over the world for its pottery. There is a potter named Talla, real name was Abdullah, whose utensils are so beautiful that people take them as gifts. He is not only an expert potter but also wealthy because of his special art. The utensils he makes are so charming that they are popular even in distant lands. The jugs and jars are made so that the water gushing from their necks could be seen clearly. The dishes, bowls, vases, saucers, plates, jugs, chimneys, etc. made by Talla fill the hearts of buyers. He does not know that where he gets the clay from and how he kneads it and then put it on the potter's wheel and shape it into pots. He has never revealed this secret to anyone. The colorful paintings on his pots are also wonderful and charming." In reply to a question, the fellow traveler said, "I will bring you some vessels in the morning. You will be amazed to see how skilled and perfect Allah has made this man." This was confirmed by the local traders also who had come to have business deals with the caravan. They also started praising Talla's art. Now Izzat Beg really wanted to see the pottery made by Talla which everyone was praising. He thought about it all night and eagerly waited for the morning to go and see the perfection of Talla's pottery. And then when morning came, the first thing he did was to call the man and say, "Go and buy some good pottery from the potter you mentioned last night." The fellow traveler knew the potter's shop. Immediately, he went to the town and after a while brought back some fine pieces of Talla's art. Izzat Beg was surprised to see the pots. He never thought that the pots could be so beautiful. He said in astonishment, "As much praise as I heard last night, these pieces are far more impressive in sophistication and beauty." He was very happy to see the pots. The man who had gone to fetch the utensils also happened to see Sohni, the potter's daughter. As Izzat Beg was praising the pots, he softly remarked, "Sir, these are pieces of pottery. I have seen a girl there whose beauty cannot be praised in words. There will not be such a beautiful girl in the whole of Balkh." All of a sudden, Izzat Beg felt that he had fallen in love with Sohni without seeing her. The next day, Izzat Beg also walked around Talla's house, shop. What was the yard of the house? A well-organized factory with hundreds of workers, and rooms were filled with all kinds of utensils. Izzat Beg was stunned to see Talla's workmanship. Talla himself was showing the pots to a wealthy man of Bukhara. Showing utensils from one room to another, he came to a special inner room where he kept his best and most valuable artifacts. These pots could only be bought by wealthy persons. Purchase of these utensils was not within the reach of common man. Izzat Beg had just stepped inside the room when he saw a glimpse of Talla's daughter, Sohni, sitting on the bench behind the curtain in front of him. At that time she was painting a bowl. At a glance, Izzat Beg dropped the vase in his hand. Hearing the sound of the vase breaking, Sohni's heart began to pound. She came into the room bareheaded, holding a paintbrush in her hand. Izzat Beg was standing in front. Tall, handsome young man, with an open face and shoulder-length wavy hair. Sohni, on the other hand, was as beautiful as a maiden descending from heaven. The burning face turned even redder in panic. Her face and forehead were tangled with gold because of her haste. Standing in the doorway, Sohni looked as if someone had put a beautiful picture in the mirror. In the same way, for a while, they both stood silent. Talla the potter, clearing his throat, began to pick up the pieces of the broken vase. After a while, Talla said to Sohni, "Daughter, show the pot to the customer. I'll be back." Saying this, he went outside the shop for some urgent piece of work. On the other hand, Izzat Beg got a chance to see Sohni with open heart. Now the situation was that Sohni was showing him the pots and he did not like any one at all. It was not his intention to like dishes because his choice was dishmaker's daughter now, and for her he just wanted to stay there longer. That is why he rejected whatever utensils Sohni showed him until she got bored and said a little annoyed, "If you don't like our pot, buy it from another store. We have the ones in front of you." Now Izzat Beg also realized that he had stayed there for too long, so he bought a couple of pots and left. Indeed, he bought the pots from Tullah's shop but left his heart there. Normally the heart, but he had left his life and soul there. Sohni had overwhelmed his heart and mind. He spent that night waiting for the morning to go to Tullah's shop and see Sohni. After that, Izzat Beg would come to Tullah every day and keep looking, liking and buying utensils for hours on end until this purchase emptied many rooms. One day when he came, Tullah happened to be out somewhere, maybe offering condolences for deceased relative. Sohni didn't want to upset such a good customer just because her father was not at home. So she showed him the pots herself. Izzat Beg was waiting this moment from the day first, so he kept buying utensils throughout the afternoon. Then it is not known what happened and how it happened that while selling utensils, Sohni got smitten by love. With a single glimpse of the stranger, Sohni began to feel as if her pots were filled with something else. On the other hand, Izzat Beg had never seen such colors before, and began to feel as if the drawing room of Sohni's house was getting cold. The hotter it was outside, the more comfortable it felt inside. As soon as he touched the strings of her heart like Rania, Sohni's limbs started humming like Heersil, and no sooner they saw in the eyes of each other, songs resounded in the air. Thus both Sohni and Mahinwal passed away forever.